By the end of the year, a lot of people are expecting interest rates to drop. You might be hoping you can buy a house by the end of the year. You might also be thinking the only expense you need to come up with is the down payment. We're going to go over hidden costs when it comes to homeownership, when purchasing and owning. So stay tuned for the full video.
Stop wasting money on that dumb shit and instead put it in investment. I know it's tempting. You'll spend it and be broke again.
So before we dive into the numbers, guys, of course, we wanted to thank you for coming to the channel. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Ryan.
And if you like this kind of content, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Of course, if you have any comments or questions at the end of the video, please leave them down below. We'll be sure to answer them. So what are all these hidden costs? Well, even if you're aware of some of these costs, you may not be aware of how big of an impact they really are. I know I wasn't, at least the first time I bought a house. Everyone was telling me, oh, dude, trust me, there's going to be more costs than you expect. And I kept saying, I know. And you might be in the same way, but if we could simply say it one more time, we're going to be another person saying in your ear is you're not quite prepared for just how big some of these costs are, or maybe you're completely oblivious to some of the true costs of home ownership.
Yeah, and brace yourself for this. But according to a recent Bankrate study, the average annual cost of owning and maintaining a single family home in the United States is over $18,000. That's per year. That's a whopping 26% higher than it was just 4 years ago.
And some of you may be thinking, 18,000, I can afford that. That's just a lot of these hidden costs that we're going to refer to. Obviously, a mortgage in itself, a lot of times for the average median home in the US today, is going to exceed that alone. So don't be thinking, oh, 18, I can afford that a year. You know, I can maybe move some things around. If, like your parents always say, I can buy one less Starbucks or two. But the reality is that home ownership in its all encapsulating expenses is extremely expensive nowadays. It's at record low affordability. I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard that at this point, but we're going to dive into the actual costs.
So yeah, let's break down some of these hidden costs we keep referring to. So maybe not so hidden, you're aware of this, but we'll tell you why it can be hidden, is property taxes. This can increase quite rapidly depending on the state and area you're in. But what are these numbers? How much are we really talking about?
Yeah.
Let's look at some of those numbers, some averages we found. So when you're talking about property taxes, this one can range drastically, but mostly depending on the state. But property taxes on average, homeowners can pay around $2,500 per year. I'll say for South Florida, that's way off.
Yeah.
It's much higher than that. Probably California as well. I don't know as well. But yeah, Florida is going to be much higher. Whew. And luckily for me, Tennessee is much lower. So yeah, again, the state's going to drastically change. The city's going to change it. Homeowner insurance. We've heard about it in the news more than likely. But depending on the area you're in, California's, the Floridas, such like that, it can increase drastically. Ooh. From year to year. It's quite mind-blowing. And some of them will have extra small print that says, and if a natural disaster occurs, we can request 75% of your policy all over again. You're like, I can't afford that. I can barely afford the initial. Yeah. That's the whole point of paying for the insurance.
Yeah, how are you helping me in this case, you know?
So you're saying if I pay for it for the full year and a natural disaster happens, I can pay for it again? Yeah. I'll really appreciate that. Yeah. And some places, that's the only option you have.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, moving from Florida to Tennessee. The insurance and taxes is drastically different from state to state.
Drastically. I've saved an immense amount of money by moving to Tennessee.
Yeah. So,
pro tip.
Yeah, there you go. Just buy another house real quick.
Move.
But yeah, guys, it can be mind blowing. I mean, when I first moved to Florida and started seeing insurance premiums of what they were and everything, I was blown away. And that was like the lowest I could get, and there weren't too many shopping around options.
Really weren't, yeah.
This is what it is, and you're gonna have to pay it. So, yeah, it can be a real punch to the gut when you're like, all right.
Wow, it really punched you in the gut.
Yeah, it did.
And the Oscar goes to...
You know, I got my mortgage, I got my taxes. This is what my monthly expenses are going to be. Well, then insurance decides to come in, and it can be a real pain.
And on top of that, you got your base insurance for the property and all of that. But then you have flood insurance. Then you have umbrella insurance. You got all these additives you can add to it. It just keeps adding up on top of the price increasing, so the insurance has to increase. It's just become a huge, I say, hidden cost. Again, this can drastically change depending on, this is really if you're near water, if you're in a flood zone, all of this can drastically change. But you can expect to budget for around $1,200 per year for coverage. Again, in Florida, expect a lot more. 3 to way more than that.
Yeah.
I've heard people, no exaggeration, taxes in Florida, $18,000 a year or more.
Mhm.
And I don't know a lot of super rich people. So the people that are super rich,
yeah.
I can't imagine what they pay. And insurance over 10 grand
Oh,
a
yeah.
year. So, and that's again, not a super rich house, just a modest, mostly house.
Yeah.
So that drastically changes. You really can't, that one's just an average but
Yeah.
you can almost scrap it.
If you're in a place with a lot of natural disasters, chances are your insurance premiums
Yeah.
are going to be higher than the national average.
Another one that, again, you might be aware of, but that really still almost always looks you in the face and still sneaks up on you is
Ugh.
maintenance and repairs. So landscaping, that's one that can cost. Roof leaks can be a big problem. Appliance breakdown, you're like, oh, got to go get a new fridge. $2,000.
Yeah,
Refrigerators
yeah.
are crazy
Oh my
these days.
gosh.
Crazy. So
A trash can is expensive.
yeah, that's
Like,
true.
this is a bin I throw my trash in. Why
It
is it
opens-
$100?
Yeah, it opens and closes.
Yeah, I'm like, this doesn't even make any sense.
I agree. So no, it is crazy. Every little thing like that, you're like, oh, it's just a simple, no big deal. I got a quote for just my small front yard in Florida for irrigation. That's it. It doesn't have to install a well, nothing like that. Just tap into the city, which can be expensive, and that's the smallest part of my lot is the front yard.
Oh, very small.
Very small. Over $10,000. You're like, dude, it's plastic pipes. I know
Yeah,
not
yeah.
everybody can do it, but gosh, it's so crazy expensive. Just
Ugh.
every little thing. And that's a repair, so the grass will be okay. That's not just the ongoing maintenance of everything else.
Yeah. And you may be thinking, well, I'm just going to do a good home inspection before I go through with the purchase and everything, and I'll have a full idea. That is simply not the reality, unfortunately. A lot of things pop up. We know people personally who have been hit like, oh, actually, your pipes are messed up, or
Yeah.
this or that. Or maybe your insurance, after the fact, comes by and like, we don't like how your roof looks. That happened to me. And they're like, you're going to have to fix this and that and this. And you're going to have to go through a whole hassle or spend a lot of money to do all these repairs and everything. I mean, it really just builds up. And you're like, I was not expecting to have to spend this much money so quick right after my down payment.
Exactly.
Just so that I can live in the home.
You just took so much time to save up everything and go, all right, I've done it. And
Yep.
then these repairs come up. Or honestly, you move in and you want to make it your own. You want to repaint, you want to do the landscaping, you want to do all these things. And you're like, wait, I just did all this time to save just so I can get the house.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got to spend all this money on the house. Like it can add up very, very quickly.
Oh, it does.
I just want to throw out there pest control. That one is one that really snuck up on me. I'm like, when I was a kid, we used to just go out there, crank out some of the granule bait, ants and stuff would eat it, and we're good to go. But no, like there's a whole lot to it. They spray the inside, they spray the outside. That's just the pest control.
Yeah.
If you want like rodent, that's different. If you want mosquito, that's different. If you want this and that, it's different. If you want termite, it's different. They got to do an individual separate inspection. And usually there's down payments. There's like $100 inspection. There's down payment for the material and equipment. Then there's ongoing, like every month, it's $30, $50. So it all adds up. It's insane. Pest control, I just thought it was, just chemicals, whatever, like not that big deal. They come out once a quarter, every couple of months, but it's expensive. It adds up fast. Typically, you want to allocate at least 1% of your home's value each year towards repairs, at least, just to keep up the house.
And this probably isn't for your first set of repairs when you first buy a house. Because even if you're thinking like, oh, I'm buying a brand new house, I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard people and met people that are like, I bought a new house and it just wasn't built that well. I feel like maybe some of you guys have seen like a TikTok video of people doing new house reviews, and they're like, well, this isn't connected, the toilet's shaky, and they didn't use any caulk on the bathroom, so there's water damage behind it. I mean, that's happened to friends of ours.
Yeah.
So don't be thinking like, oh, my repair costs are going to be minimum.
Yeah.
You never really know.
Semi happened to us. Ours wasn't brand new, but it's very recently built.
Yeah.
And move in, heat doesn't work at all. Middle of winter, snowstorm, all that. Heat doesn't work at all. Got to like 40 degrees inside, 45 degrees. It was absurd. We're seeing our breath while we're walking out of the living room.
Yeah.
Major cost, and you weren't expecting it, so happens. So another one that really catches up with people, or people don't expect, is utilities. So one, utilities can just be expensive depending on where you are. In Florida, constantly people would tell me $400 or $500 electric bills.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it's always hot.
Yeah.
Your heating and cooling is super high. Your water bill can sometimes be high. I had zero usage, and mine was almost $100 every month minimum. That's just the fees and stuff put together. So it just can add up really fast. And the other one that sneaks up on you is having them come out to start the service. The application, there's a fee. The start the service, there's a fee. And if they don't know you, you're a new customer and your credit's okay, they ask for a huge deposit.
Yeah.
I had good credit and I still had to put down $500.
Mm-hmm.
Another $500 just to turn on my utility. It's crazy when they
Yeah.
add it all up.
You're like, I have to pay you to turn the water on, and then I got to pay you for that water.
Yeah, and half the time they don't come out.
Yeah.
It's just remote. Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. These vary greatly, obviously, based on the climate and where you are in the country and everything, but they can easily add up to $300 a month. Next, things like internet and cable, because I mean, you need to stay connected. It's almost a necessity in today's world, but it's not free, and it's not something that a lot of people think of. Because let's say you've been renting or doing this or living with your parents and everything, they cover that expense. It's just something that once you're responsible for everything, you have to take on, and it can be expensive depending on the plan and how much speed and how many people are in the house and what bandwidth you need. Oh, golly, the change can be drastic and everything. And you'll be paying for a certain speed, and you're not going to get that speed. Let me give you a little sneak peek into home ownership. You're like, I'm paying for this much speed, and I'm getting a tenth of that. And you call your company, and they're like, yeah,
there's loss.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
a lot.
Like, oh, okay. So you're gonna fix it?
And I've had internet for like as long as I've had my own place, obviously. But
Yeah.
moving into Tennessee, we had Wi-Fi and it was fine. But working from home now, it became a drag. I'm downloading large files. I'm doing a lot of work, conference calls, and I need that speed. I need it to be reliable, and I need it to be good speed. So I had to get a new company recently, get them to install fiber, which cost me money, get a new equipment to be able to do the new run fiber, better Wi-Fi, stronger, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's expensive. I got to get them to come out and not only run the fiber line, but also got to get them install the box in the house. That cost money, and my service went up. So like all of that, even though I've had Wi-Fi, I've had the house, I still have to get new because I needed that demand. I had that demand for it. So it can still change. And so it's all, like you said, how many people live there? What's your demand? All that stuff.
Yeah. Next is things like HOA fees. Now, you may be aware of that when you're looking at the neighborhood and they tell you a fee and everything, but some people aren't aware that they're buying into an HOA. I
did this in Tennessee.
Yeah, I know plenty of people who have done that. And just a little side note, also be aware of your HOA rules and everything, because some people buy into it thinking like, okay, I'll live in it for a little while, then maybe I'll rent it out and everything, and then in your HOA is like, you can't rent in this neighborhood.
Right.
So that's just another little side note, not necessarily an expense, although I guess you could view it as such, because
that's your big.
You're gonna have to keep living in that house. They're not gonna let you do anything else with it. So be aware of your HOA terms and fees, and if you're in an HOA or not, because they can make your life miserable, frankly.
So lastly, this is more when it's purchasing a home, not when you've already owned the home and you're living in it, but closing costs.
Yeah.
From day one to right before you close, they change constantly.
Mm-hmm.
You get new updates, you get better numbers, like the rates change.
Yeah.
They constantly change, but they're a bigger cost than a lot of people expect. You can typically estimate 2 to 4% of the purchase price of the home, which is significant.
Yeah,
if you're buying $4 or $5, $800,000 home, especially in Florida or California, you're looking at a substantial cost on top of your down payment. So just be aware of that, plan for that, have as much of a buffer as you possibly can, which sounds crazy when you're already saving tens, maybe hundreds of thousands, but try the best you can to have extra cushion.
Yeah, because I don't know. I haven't heard a person yet where they're like, yeah, once I got my closing cost estimate, it was exactly that number. That almost never happens. You're like,
it almost always goes up too.
Yeah, I've already signed everything. You already locked in my rate. We already have exactly what the fees are going to be and everything. That it changes and they'll give you like a day or two before the actual closing.
Sometimes at closing, you'll get a new sheet. This is the updated number.
And you'll call them like, what's this extra $2,000 from? And they'll give you some runaround answer and everything, and you're gonna have to pay it. That happened to me. I think mine went up like $1,700 2 days before closing. I'm like, that's a lot of money that it just suddenly came in. I'm like, there's no way you didn't know about this a few weeks ago, kind of thing. So another thing to consider.
So we put together a little list of the most expensive states, the 3 most expensive states, and the 3 cheapest or most budget-friendly states.
Yeah. Comment down below which ones you think they are. You can probably guess a couple of these, but I bet a few of them might surprise you.
So starting off with the highest cost states, you're looking at California. Most people are probably going to guess that. Hawaii. I don't know if a lot of people would guess that one. Maybe. We'll see. The last one, if it were me, I would have guessed New York. But actually, New Jersey. California, Hawaii, and New Jersey homeowners shell out over $25,000 a year for home ownership and maintenance. That's, again, not including mortgages, just those hidden costs, the maintenance, the taxes, such like that, which is absurd.
Yeah, insane. And then switching over to the lowest cost states, I probably would have guessed this one personally, but Arkansas, I don't know if I'd have guessed Kentucky and Mississippi, but they keep it much more budget friendly, much more reasonable than those other states. If you had to guess, you probably would have put those three states on the lower half, but I'm not sure everyone would have guessed those three, but it's very interesting.
So we did mention it earlier in the video. The last 4 years has gotten really, really expensive. So with that, your question must be, why? Why has it gone up so much? What is happening? What's changed? And one of the biggest factors is the soaring home prices. So your taxes are going to be based on your home value, the property, land itself, and the building value. And that's what most cities and states base it on.
Mhm.
And so with the value skyrocketing about 40+% in certain areas, you can imagine that's a massive increase.
Oh, yeah.
To then see your taxes fall along with that, that's huge. How they afford it, I don't know. Even if you already own the home, you're like, at least I don't have to purchase a home. Those taxes are going up even though you own the home still. So
Yeah.
some states do have it where they can't go up too much too fast, which is great. That helps a lot. But others don't. And the ones that once you are purchasing a home for fresh, new, they reset the taxes to the
Yeah,
new value, which can really hurt a lot of new home
Yeah,
buyers.
so don't be confused. Like if you're looking at tax records and everything, like, oh, taxes are so cheap on this house. But as someone who bought it back in 1980 and
Yeah.
everything, and they haven't had their taxes like reevaluated and everything, when you purchase that house for say $400,000-$500,000, you're paying much higher taxes now.
It's going to reset, and it could really, really shock you.
Oh yeah. Next, pretty common answer that you probably would have guessed: just inflation and everything going on with the economy. The dollar doesn't go as far as it does anymore, and obviously on top of that, home prices have far exceeded the growth in actual income and everything. So affordability just isn't what it used to
Yeah,
be.
exactly.
And then on top of that, insurance premiums are just on the rise, kind of tied into some of the things that we just mentioned, but also just natural disasters and all these things are forcing the prices up. Because you hear sometimes that insurance companies aren't really making a profit in certain areas. So some of them are leaving areas, which allow other people to drive up the prices, or they're just increasing their prices to make a profit. So it's a real dangerous game, and premiums are, in some areas, just going absolutely insane.
So just some quick tips to hopefully help you out. And most of these are going to be self-explanatory, but just more of a reminder, a refresher. If you're purchasing an older home, you can expect more maintenance, more repairs, even if most of it looks great or the inspection report gives it a clean bill of health.
Yeah.
Your refrigerator might go out the next week. You never know. It was working completely fine. Now it's not. The heat looks great in the summer. It's not being run.
Yeah.
In the winter, it bites. So you never really know. So an older home, you're going to have more of those problems. Just plan for it. Set aside a bigger budget. Set aside more money per year, and just be prepared.
Yeah, and first-time home buyers, like when I bought my first house, we just underestimate the costs. And there's a decent chance when I buy my next house that I'll probably still underestimate it a little bit, just because your natural thinking is, oh, I can make it work this way and I'll just do it this cheaper route and everything. The reality is that things are just always more expensive than you anticipate. If you've been lucky enough to experience where like, oh no, I went way under budget. What are you guys talking about? Hey, leave it down in the comments. I'm curious to see if that actually happens, because I know that was not the case for me. So yeah.
And the last tip is just location matters. One, when it comes to investing, you'll hear that
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot. But two, if you're buying in an urban area, say Miami, urban area, very popular, high demand, you're going to pay more in taxes. Property values are higher. You're going to pay more in insurance. You're in a flood area. You're in certain parts that are more expensive, maybe more known to crime, all that stuff. That's going to affect it. So location drastically matters on your cost as well.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we hope this list doesn't scare you guys. We were putting together this list to help prepare you, get ahead of the curve. Now that you know, hey, rates might be coming down, I might start looking for a home. Let me prepare. This is what this video is about.
Yeah.
This is we thought we put together a small list of things we've experienced, research we could put in, and numbers we can show you, just to show you like it's not just, oh, it's a down payment and closing cost. Much more that goes into it. So just be prepared. That's what we want. That's what we hope. We hope you guys do get in that house by the end of the year, or if your plan is 3 years, by the end of 3 years, we're really hoping, wishing for you guys. We hope this video helped, didn't scare you, but prepared you. And we hope you like this video, share with a friend, and we'll see you in the next one.
Stop wasting money on that dumb shit and instead put it in investment. I know it's tempting. You'll spend it and be broke again.